The Miami sun beat down mercilessly on Biscayne Boulevard as another wave of suited professionals hurried past the figure sitting quietly against the McDonald's exterior wall. Camille Johnson had claimed this same spot for 8 months now, her weathered cardboard sign resting against her knees with its simple message, "Anything helps. God bless." Her clothes had seen better days, faded jeans and a worn hoodie that had once been navy blue but now resembled the color of storm clouds. A small backpack containing everything she owned in the world sat protectively beside her. Most people avoided eye contact as they passed, some dropping coins without breaking stride, others pretending she didn't exist at all. Camille had grown accustomed to both reactions. She offered a quiet, "Thank you," to those who showed kindness and bore the indifference of others with dignity that seemed to emanate from somewhere deeper than her circumstances suggested. There was something in her posture, the way she held her head, that spoke of a different life lived not so long ago. The black Lamborghini that pulled up to the curb disrupted the usual rhythm of the street. Malcolm Cross stepped out, his $10,000 suit pristine despite the heat, diamond watch catching the sunlight as he gestured to his assistant and camera crew. At 38, he commanded attention wherever he went, his presence filling spaces with the kind of energy that money and power generated. Cross Empire Holdings had made him one of Miami's most prominent real estate moguls, and his recent divorce had only amplified his need to stay in the public eye. "This is perfect," Malcolm announced to his team, pointing toward Camille. "Real, authentic content. People eat this stuff up." His assistant, a nervous young man clutching a tablet, nodded enthusiastically while the camera operator adjusted his equipment. Malcolm's social media had been struggling lately, his divorce settlements and business controversies making headlines for all the wrong reasons. He needed something to rehabilitate his image, something that would show his generous side. Camille noticed the commotion but kept her eyes down, hoping they would move along. She had learned that drawing attention was rarely beneficial in her current situation. But Malcolm approached with the confident stride of someone who had never been told no, his cameraman trailing behind. "Hey there," Malcolm said, crouching down to her eye level but maintaining careful distance from the dirty sidewalk. "What's your story? How much money would actually change your life?" The camera rolled as he spoke, capturing every word for what he already envisioned as a viral moment of generosity. Camille looked up reluctantly, meeting his gaze for the first time. Her eyes held intelligence that seemed to surprise him, though he quickly covered his reaction with practiced charm. "I'm sorry, I don't really want to be filmed," she said quietly, her voice carrying traces of an education that didn't match her current circumstances. "Come on, don't be shy," Malcolm insisted, pulling out his wallet with theatrical flair. "I'm trying to help you here. This could be your lucky day." He extracted a $20 bill and held it out to her, the camera capturing his magnanimous gesture. "Tell me your name at least." "Camille," she said after a moment's hesitation, accepting the money because $20 meant food for 2 days. "Thank you." She hoped this would satisfy him and he would leave, but she could see in his expression that this was just the beginning of whatever performance he had planned. Malcolm studied her for a moment longer than necessary, his wheels turning. $20 and a few thank yous weren't going to generate the kind of content that would trend on social media. He needed something bigger, something that would shock people and get them talking. His assistant whispered something in his ear and Malcolm's face lit up with inspiration. "Actually, wait here," he told Camille, standing and brushing off his knees. "I'll be right back. This is going to change your life." He walked back toward his car, phone already pressed to his ear as he made rapid calls to his network of socialite friends and influencer contacts. Within 30 minutes, a small crowd had gathered, additional cameras appeared, and what had started as a simple charitable gesture was transforming into a full-scale media event. Camille watched the gathering crowd with growing unease. She tried to move away from her usual spot, but Malcolm noticed immediately and beckoned her back with the kind of authoritative gesture he used in boardrooms. No, stay right there. Trust me, you're going to want to see this." The lunchtime foot traffic had increased, and curious onlookers began forming a circle around the spectacle. Malcolm positioned himself in the center, making sure all cameras had clear shots of what he was about to do. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, the same ring box that had held his ex-wife's engagement ring just months earlier. "Ladies and gentlemen," Malcolm announced, his voice carrying across the street, "you're about to witness something incredible." He looked down at Camille, who sat frozen in disbelief as she realized what was happening. The crowd pressed closer, phones emerging from pockets as people began recording their own versions of whatever was about to unfold. Malcolm dropped to one knee on the dirty sidewalk, his expensive suit touching the same concrete where Camille had been sitting for months. The diamond ring caught the light as he opened the box, its brilliance almost obscene against the backdrop of urban poverty. "Camille," he said, his voice pitched perfectly for the cameras, "I want you to marry me. I'll give you my life, my mansions, everything I own. You'll never be homeless again. I'll make you a princess." The crowd erupted in gasps and excited chatter. Some people cheered, caught up in what they perceived as an incredible romantic gesture. Others began live streaming, narrating the scene for their followers. Malcolm's friends whooped and encouraged him, treating the moment like entertainment rather than a life-changing proposal. Camille stared at him in complete disbelief, her mind struggling to process the surreal nature of the situation. "You must be joking," she finally managed, her voice barely audible above the crowd noise. "I'm completely serious," Malcolm insisted, still on one knee, the ring held out toward her like an offering. "Think about it, Camille. Rags to riches. This is every woman's dream come true. You'll have everything money can buy." "I don't even know you," Camille replied, scooting backward against the wall. "This isn't charity, it's cruelty. You're making a spectacle of me." Her voice carried a strength that seemed to surprise some of the onlookers, as if they had expected her to be overcome with gratitude. Malcolm's confidence faltered slightly, but his friends urged him on. "She's playing hard to get," one of them called out. "That's what makes it interesting." The cameras kept rolling, capturing every word, every expression, every moment of what was rapidly becoming less romantic and more exploitative. "Come on, Camille," Malcolm said, his tone becoming more insistent. "Do you understand what I'm offering you? I own half this city. My penthouse alone is worth more than most people see in a lifetime." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, her discomfort evident to anyone who was actually watching her rather than just filming. "Please leave me alone," Camille said, but her quiet request was lost in the excitement of the crowd. Malcolm's frustration was beginning to show as his grand gesture wasn't producing the grateful tears and joyful acceptance he had anticipated. "You're living on the street," Malcolm said, his voice taking on an edge, "and you're rejecting me? Do you know who I am?" The mask of charity was slipping, revealing something uglier underneath. "Maybe you don't understand your situation here. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Camille stood up for the first time since the ordeal began, and something in her posture shifted. The defeated slouch was gone, replaced by a dignity that commanded attention. "You think homelessness makes me desperate?" she asked, her voice clear and strong. "You think because I'm black and poor, I should be grateful for this humiliation?" The crowd's energy began to change as people realized they weren't witnessing romance but exploitation. Some of the phones stopped recording, their owners suddenly uncomfortable with their participation in the spectacle. "This isn't kindness," Camille continued, her eyes never leaving Malcolm's face. "You're humiliating me for social media content. You don't even know my name was fake until I told you, but you want to marry me? You don't see a person here. You see a prop for your next viral video?" Malcolm's face reddened as murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. What had been enthusiastic support was shifting toward criticism, and he could feel his carefully orchestrated moment slipping away. "Look, I'm trying to help you," he said, standing and brushing off his knees. "Maybe you're not thinking clearly. When's the last time you had a real meal? A shower?" The condescension in his voice was the final straw for several onlookers who began voicing their disapproval. But then something unexpected happened. A young woman in scrubs, apparently on her lunch break from a nearby medical facility, pushed through the crowd with a puzzled expression. "Excuse me," she said, approaching Camille hesitantly. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you Dr. Camille Johnson?" She held up her phone, showing what appeared to be a medical journal article with a photo that bore a striking resemblance to the woman everyone had assumed was just another homeless person. The crowd fell silent as Camille met the young woman's gaze. "Yes," she said simply, and that single word changed everything. "Oh my God," the medical worker whispered, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet street. "You're the surgeon who exposed the Mercy General scandal. You saved so many lives by speaking up." She turned to the crowd, her voice rising with excitement and respect. "This woman is a hero. She gave up everything to stop a hospital from covering up malpractice that was killing patients." The revelation hit the crowd like a physical force. Phones that had been recording Malcolm's supposed generosity were now pointed at Camille with newfound respect. Someone else in the crowd pulled up news articles from 2 years earlier showing Dr. Camille Johnson in hospital scrubs, receiving awards for her surgical excellence, speaking at medical conferences. Malcolm stood frozen as people began sharing what they were finding online. The brilliant emergency room surgeon who had blown the whistle on systematic medical fraud. The doctor who had sacrificed her career to expose corruption that was killing innocent people. The woman who had been buried under lawsuits and legal fees until she lost everything she owned. "Wait," someone else in the crowd called out, reading from their phone. "The hospital she exposed. It says here it was bought by Cross Holdings." All eyes turned to Malcolm, whose face had gone pale as the connections were made. Camille reached into her backpack, the same bag that everyone had assumed contained the meager possessions of a homeless woman. Instead, she withdrew a manila folder thick with documents. "Malcolm Cross," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded operating rooms and saved lives. "Cross Empire Holdings purchased Mercy General Hospital 18 months ago. You covered up the malpractice that I exposed. Your company has been profiting from the corruption that destroyed my life." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Malcolm opened his mouth to deny it, but Camille continued with the precision of someone presenting a case. "I've been living on these streets for 8 months, she said. "Not because I gave up, but because I've been gathering evidence. Every day sitting in this spot, I've been documenting how your company operates, interviewing former employees who were too scared to speak up before, building a case that will expose not just what happened at Mercy General, but at every medical facility you own." She held up the folder, its contents representing months of painstaking investigation conducted from the most unlikely of circumstances. "Tomorrow morning, these documents go to the State Medical Board, the FBI, and the Department of Health. 23 patients died because of the negligence your company covered up. Hundreds more suffered complications that could have been prevented." Malcolm's friends had gone quiet, several of them backing away as they realized they had just helped document their associate's downfall. The cameras that had been meant to capture his moment of viral generosity were instead recording his exposure as a corrupt businessman who had just unknowingly proposed to the woman who was about to bring down his empire. "You want to know why I won't marry you?" Camille asked, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Because justice isn't for sale. My principles aren't for sale. And unlike you, I know the difference between genuine help and a publicity stunt." As if summoned by her words, several men in dark suits approached from different directions through the crowd. FBI badges appeared as they identified themselves, and it became clear that this encounter had been anything but coincidental. "Dr. Johnson," one of the agents said respectfully, "we've been waiting for your signal." They had been watching Malcolm for months, building their own case, and Camille's street-level investigation had provided the final pieces they needed. Malcolm looked around desperately as handcuffs appeared, finally understanding that his impulsive proposal had been recorded by dozens of people and would indeed go viral, just not in the way he had intended. The woman he had tried to use as a prop for his own aggrandizement was actually the architect of his destruction. As Malcolm was led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled and his diamond watch catching the light one last time, Camille gathered her few possessions. The cardboard sign that had been her daily companion for 8 months lay forgotten on the sidewalk, but someone in the crowd noticed that it had writing on the backside that no one had seen before: "Justice is coming." The crowd dispersed slowly, many of them still processing what they had witnessed. The young medical worker who had first recognized Camille approached again, this time with tears in her eyes. "Dr. Johnson, I just want you to know what you did, what you sacrificed. It matters. You saved my grandmother's life 3 years ago at Mercy General, right before everything came out. I've never forgotten." Camille smiled for the first time in months, the expression transforming her face and revealing glimpses of the confident surgeon she had once been. "Thank you," she said. "That means everything." As the FBI agents finished their work and prepared to leave, one of them turned back to Camille. "The hospital board has already approved your license reinstatement, pending the conclusion of this case. There are 17 medical facilities that want to interview you, and 3 are offering department head positions. Your reputation in the medical community never suffered, Dr. Johnson. Everyone knew what you sacrificed." Camille nodded, looking back at the spot where she had sat for 8 months, where she had endured indifference and pity while building the case that would change everything. Malcolm's Lamborghini sat abandoned at the curb, a symbol of the excess and arrogance that had finally met its match. The story that would be told and retold in the coming days wasn't about a billionaire's grand gesture or a homeless woman's good fortune. It was about the power of conviction, the price of integrity, and the truth that sometimes the most powerful person on any street is the one everyone assumes has no power at all. In a world where people are too often judged by their circumstances rather than their character, where wealth is mistaken for worth and poverty for powerlessness, Dr. Camille Johnson had reminded everyone watching that appearances can be deceiving. Justice sometimes requires sacrifice, and the person you step over today might be the one who changes the world tomorrow.